Good evening, Jakob.
Good evening, Hung.
Welcome
Very
to
nice.
Vietnam.
Very nice to be with you.
Yeah, so
many years.
Yeah, so many years. This is our fourth times to Hanoi.
I think third time. I think I was 2 times in Hanoi when we went to Hanam province.
Yeah.
And this is the 3rd time.
Yes, okay.
And
but I have to thank you. I have to thank you for coming here to attend this regional conference.
Yeah.
It's very important discussion for me, for my institution, for people in the region on how really to boost the transformation of the sustainable livestock systems here in Asia and the Pacific. And you could see many people in the room, and you are very motivated.
I'm extremely impressed by the vibrant development in Asia, and everything is so dynamic, and but also at high risk. I mean, we really have to take care of the natural resources, of the pollution, of the zoonotic disease, but also the pandemic risk.
Yeah.
And for me, the most positive outcome of this conference is really the willingness for multilateral discussion and negotiation of the future.
Okay, so I like very much this short summaries coming out from the discussion we had this discussion. But Jakob, I would like to come back a bit to the talk, very short one. You know, we gave you only 10 minutes, but it's it was very 10 precious minutes, I would say.
Yes.
And you know, the transformation of knowledge and information you try to convey it such a short time was excellent, and I could feel how people like the talk. And the talk was about One Health, and obviously I invited you here to talk about One Health because you are one of the global leaders in One Health. I would like you to tell me, I know of course, but for the interest of people who will watch us later, about your career and how you started One Health, you know, and you go up to the level of the revised definition of One Health, because I like very much the argument on that, and we push you a little bit the discussion around the One Health approach. The reason I bring you here, and actually many people respect you by the dedication, knowledge, but also the achievement in One Health type of work that you have been doing for the last I don't know how many decades.
Well, for me it all started actually in Chad when we studied nomadic pastoralists, and we created intuitively a team of doctors and veterinarians, microbiologists and anthropologists, and we found that more animals were vaccinated than children. And then we sat together with the communities and the authorities, and we agreed that we should try joint vaccinations. So when the veterinarians go out to vaccinate the livestock, they take along nurses, health personnel who can vaccinate children and women. And then we analyzed it, and we saw that we saved money because we shared the transport and the cold chain. So that sparked me the definition for me of One Health as an incremental benefit of a closer cooperation between human and animal health and other sectors. And I think we worked along this definition that is from 2005. So 17 years before the today new definition of OLEP, which actually proposes to balance and optimize the health of humans, animals and the environment. At that time, for me, the environment was not yet factored in, and I factored it in only recently.
So do you like this revised definition of OLEP on One Health or not? Compared
Yes,
to what
I think the notion of One Health fits perfectly into the notion of optimization, because also under optimization we can look at the benefits of the closer cooperation, in particularly from a game theoretical point of view. If you reach a Nash equilibrium in game theory, this is the strategy that suits everybody. So we have to listen to everybody and find out how can we find a compromise where we no, compromise, it's a wrong word, it's used in German. How can we find an agreement in a way that everybody can live with it? And if we achieve that, then that's the best strategy to go anyway. So I have no problem with the term optimization. In contrast, it sparked totally new ideas, so that we really go today towards strategy analysis. And it's complicated because we need to factor in farmer income, health of humans and animals, and the sustaining of natural resources. And this is complicated. We need a complicated mathematical theory for it. But once we can get it to run, we can find out solutions that we can never find out if we do only a livelihood analysis. That's not enough. We need also an ecological analysis. What is the threshold for sustainable use of natural resources?
Yeah. So in your talk today, you relate the concept of Ostrom, the Nobel Prize. Yeah. And I know that you are very proud as well because she's from Switzerland or something.
No, she's American.
She's American, but she did some job in...
But the first example in her book is a mountain village in Switzerland.
Okay, yes. It's about her study site.
And it is a village where my father had a house. And so I'm personally tied to that place, because I was born maybe 20 kilometers from that place. And it was an American anthropologist, Robert Netting, who was doing agroecology work in Nigeria. And he came to the conclusion, to understand agroecology, you need to understand human demographics. And you have no demographic records in Nigeria. So he came to Europe, and they recommended him go in this mountain village of Turbel. They have 300 years of the books of baptism, marriage and death. And with these books, which he analyzed from 16th century to 20th century, he was able to reconstruct the demographic development of these people. And he could show that these communities self-restrained them to balance the population. The growth was very slow, and they restrained themselves in the use of the pastures and in the use of the forest. And it was highly sanctioned if somebody transgressed. And in this way, they could live with the resources they had. And I think our lesson to learn is we have to learn from this community-based sustainable use of natural resources in all our countries.
Yeah. So we have about sustainability.
We have to bring it at national level for sustainability.
This is about the sustainability because actually it's impact directly to the next generation.
Absolutely.
In future. Because but Jakob, of course, you have been in the field for many years. I always say that it's very difficult for me to see how slowly we move ahead with the One Health concept, because we have talked about One Health concept for many years. We know that it's important. It can solve a certain case. One Health is not a magic bullet. No. It cannot solve everything. No. It will solve, like you said, when it gives added value.
Yes.
What are the major challenges to make this One Health work on the ground for you, which owns this experience across Africa to Asia, and you also started working in Latin America on One Health?
I don't like to talk about challenges and problems. I prefer to talk about solutions and
is also good.
Possibilities. And we have too many problems. And if we list all the problems, we become depressed and we stop doing something. So let us look at Vietnam. Vietnam is such a vibrant country, and it survived colonialism, it survived the war, and today you are in an incredible position and hugely dynamic. But the natural resources are heavily under pressure. So I believe if Vietnam could develop locally adapted environmental sanitation, then you can already reduce massively the pressure on the environment. I mean, if the untreated wastewater goes in the sea like that, it threatens the coastal fisheries and all these things. So I think if we can find solutions that are adapted to the local situation, I think we can do it with solar energy, with new energies, we can do it with artificial intelligence, the digitalization will help us. But, and you asked me about the challenge, it is the willingness to cooperate. And that's what we have to elicit with the politicians. I experienced that public health authorities would refuse to share bacterial strains between humans and animals. I cannot tell you why, but I think there is probably a barrier of communication in the way we educate people. They become sectoral specialists, and then they think anything that is not inside this sector
it is not needed, it's not prioritized.
It's not needed, it's not competent. And we have to overcome that. And I think this is our role as scientists, that we have to enter into the dialogue with the communities and with the politicians. We need that permanent transdisciplinary dialogue to move towards that stronger integration that we need.
And more evidence on the added value of One Health.
I think so.
But you see, that is very strange, because when we look at the literature of One Health, or the so-called One Health economics and thing, the name pop up all the time, with the example of brucellosis in Mongolia. And recently you published a beautiful study on rabies, proposal to eradicate rabies in Africa. And I asked you the question on the stage. We need only $800 million to eradicate rabies in the whole African continent.
Yes.
For me, it's not a big number.
No, it's not a big number.
Why could not? What? No, even use one solution. I still come back to the challenge. What is the problem? What is the problem that we could not find that money to eradicate rabies in Africa?
First it needs consensus, and we went now through the consensus process. So the plan for the rabies elimination in Africa went through the technical committee of the African Union, and now through the General Assembly of the African Union in February. So it passed now the political consensus. So now I wait for the continuation of this work with African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources, AU-IBAR, that we have to bring together all the chief veterinary officers of African nations. For example, we could do that at the General Assembly of WAR in Paris. And if we can reach the adherence of all the CVOs of all African nations, we could move forward. This is not utopic, because Africa eliminated rinderpest in 2011, and this was a similar coordination process. If you compare it to the rinderpest elimination in Africa, this was largely externally funded. The European Union significantly contributed to the elimination. And I think with rabies, because if you want to wait that individual dog owners would pay for the vaccination of their own dog, we can wait forever. I think we must
don't pay it because they don't have money.
They don't have enough money
to invest.
So we need external funding, and that is justified. And I believe, be it the European Union, be it the World Bank, or be it Bill Gates, I think we could convince them to invest in that.
The 800 million is about the money a pandemics fund have been granted so far after the 3 rounds. And of course, it's still very far away from the World Bank estimate of $10 billion to prevent the pandemics per year. So the investment, we have on this number, but I think that we are still very far to reach the level of investment needed to prevent the next pandemics.
I mean, of course, we need also to further strengthen the awareness of the decision makers on these benefits. The problem is these benefits are not directly tangible because they extend to the whole nation. The human capital benefit is composed of the per capita contribution of every person, and those who die will not benefit, obviously. But if those who would die before don't die anymore, they live and they contribute to the wealth of their nation.
So I think that's also the whole thing is about, you know, awareness, but also on the prioritization at the country level. Because, you know, the ministers, they have so many things on the table.
I know.
And you know, they rank it, but I think that, you know, the scientists, we also have a role that we need to speak out.
Yes.
And actually, it's about advocacy. If you want to have something, you need to continue working on that, and the more the voice is stronger, perhaps, you know, it influential all the decision of our politicians. And I think that, you know, maybe scientists, we are not talking enough. Do you think so, or? No, we need more Jakob Zinsstag in this world to talk about One Health and so on.
It's you have to take an attitude. You don't take a no for a no. So you just continue. And I mean, if you are convinced of of your work, of the validity of what you have done, then you can stand behind it, and you can accumulate this empirical experience, and then you know what you speak about, and at some point there is a trigger that will release it. I have this experience from acquiring research funding or also acquiring endowments. We have to keep this hope that we can change.
Be patient. But at the same time, aggressively continue the things that you believe in.
We should not be aggressive. We should just be persisting and insisting.
Yeah. And maybe persisting is a nice word.
Anger would be a wrong attitude. We have to be cheerful and be convinced cheerfully.
And that is the harmonization. This harmonization comes from Ostrom, because, you know, I think that when we met maybe 20 years ago, we talked about harmonization in Chinese.
Yes,
harmony. And actually, you know, the harmony allow people live together.
Yes.
And you know, you mentioned this example in the village. You know, this compromise or this agreement need to be reached by the population.
Yes.
Maybe it's not very good for me, but I should accept it because it's something that it fit to the interest of everyone who live around you, and that is a sustainable way of doing.
Yeah.
And finally, I think that, you know, if we reflect on our life and things, and maybe, you know, you earn a little bit more money, but, you know, when you die, we say here in Vietnam, you cannot bring the money with you.
No.
So maybe earn a bit of less money, but, you know, for the benefit of everyone, that should be the way to do. So that's very nice. So Jakob, I need to disclose something. No, not to you, but for people who watch later. That, you know, of course, you know, I started learning the transdisciplinarity in France with people from Besançon when I did my master environnement santé société. But really, when I met you in Basel for my postdoc working in Southeast Asia and West Africa, that is really the moment that I, you know, learned the One Health concept. Because, you know, you wrote on so many things at that time, and I have to say also that, you know, my late neighbor from Mulhouse, you know, read in German for me the article on Jakob published in a Basel journal, and that actually I you know, it's very nice to see how you know, so career, you know, went in different way, and, you know, jump to the point that, you know, you want to serve community. Summarize a bit in 1 minute, you know, the stories that you wanted to become a monk, or no, I don't know what, not monks, a minister of church, missionary, and then end up with at the vet, and, you know, now doing research, and you are now very close to the retirement. So what is reflection of all these things in the work?
Well, I am the seventh child of a family of 8 siblings, and I grew up in a very peaceful and happy youth, and at early age I had the feeling of being privileged. So I cannot tell you why, but I remember that when I was 10 years old, I invited a missionary from the mission to the Peruvian native communities. It was called Schweizerische Indianermission and this lady, Martha Heiniger, she came to our Sunday school and she was talking about her work. And that is my earliest memory of being interested to work abroad. And but then later on I was more interested in science. I didn't study theology because I preferred mathematics over learning Latin, Greek and Hebrew, which I would have to learn if I would have studied theology.
You should try with Ido, my friend in the room, who speaks Hebrew.
And so that's essentially the reason. But I was lucky to get married to a church minister, so we could bring together religion and science since more than 40 years now. And I think this dialogue is very important. The spiritual dimension of health is essential for people. If people feel safe spiritually, they are ready to do everything with their body. So I think it is critical that we bring together the spirituality and the material life.
Yeah.
And but bringing it together, we can go far. We can go very far because then the people feel recognized. And this was driving me very much also on the transdisciplinary process, listening to the people, what are really their needs, and following these priorities. And then the research has a very high legitimacy.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Last thing, we discuss it sometimes, you know. I follow the writing, and of course in the past, you know, it was very much technical work, you know, on this modeling, etc., etc. And recently you wrote the article, scientific articles, you know, integrating a lot of things linked to philosophy.
Yes.
The world, the view on life, etc., and One Health.
Yeah.
So why is this, and how can you do that?
Well, look, One Health is revolutionary because it changes the way we think. The whole humanities, anthropology and sociology are essentially focused on the human. But if we think the human and the animals and the environment, this totally changes the perspective. So we move away from a purely anthropocentric ontology, the perception of the being, to an ontology of humans in their environment. So, and this has deep-seated philosophical consequences. And then the other thing that I learned working with communities, you have to bring together different ways of generating knowledge. And philosophically, we work in an inter-epistemic space, which means we bring our own way of knowledge generation, our epistemology, together with the epistemology of Maya healers, traditional healers in Africa, traditional shamans in Mongolia. And if we try to bring this knowledge together, again, this has deep philosophical consequences. So, if we connect to the philosophy of science, we know why we think the way we think. So that's why I think to be self-reflexive on the philosophical grounding that you have is very important.
Okay. Very nice, lovely to talk with you, Jakob, and I have to thank you for coming to this conference, sharing the knowledge. You have been always like this, but I thank you very much. And when I talk with you, I'm thinking of Basel, where you recruited me. You know, I was with you with Swiss Tropical Public Health Institute. He did STI before, and Mark Santana, hello, Juyek, hello, Peter Denmark, our beautiful group of human and animal health that I benefited from very much for my career to now. So now I think that the drink is waiting for us. Let's go to enjoy some drink, talking with people, and I enjoy your very safe trip back to Basel.
Thank you very much, Hong.
Let's go. Thank you.